Which mispronounced words make someone appear uneducated? Specifically, my mom says frigidas, and it drives me nuts. Intensive purposes. Frustrated. Across. Granite instead of granted. He took it for granted. Especially. Supposingly and supposedly. I worked in a clinic with two women. Each one mispronounced that word in their own way. Made my jaw clench every time. Library instead of library. Mispronouncing any word in a way that makes it seem you've never seen it written down. This usually comes across better in written communication, but you can also hear it sometimes. The opposite of how someone will pronounce a word phonetically for words they've only read but never heard. Irregardless. Expresso. Especially. I had a prof who said nuclear instead of nuclear. Loudly crying face. Supposedly. It kills me to hear it. Worse comes to worse. And in the South, when people write for sell. Across T. Why the hell would you add a T sound to the end of across? Why? Should've, would've, etc., etc. Supposedly. Irregardless. Foxpaw. Mispronouncing nuclear as nuclear can make someone sound uneducated. Physical instead of fiscal. Escape. Saying library instead of library always gets me. People who pronounce GIF as GIF instead of GIF. Less specifically a word, and more the grammar around it. But seen, as in, oh yeah, I seen that on Facebook earlier. Growing up, one of my older sisters pronounced a lot of things incorrectly, and I would sass her mercilessly about it. Hand me the crown, do you mean crayon? I gotta use the toilet, do you mean toilet? She's an upper management track project leader for a company that handles military training contracts now. She proofread all of my work in undergrad. Showed me, I guess. Not a word, but when people say it was 5 a.m. in the morning or it was 10 p.m. at night, it just sounds so redundant. You only need to include a, m, or in the morning, one or the other. No need for both. I could care less. For all intensive purposes. Intents and purposes. It's intents and purposes. Gazpacho instead of Gestapo. Mixing up see, seen, and saw. I immediately assume you don't know what you were talking about. When people say Pacific instead of specific, you're not a boat. Mispronouncing nuclear as nuclear is like showing up to a spelling bee wearing sweatpants. You're just not ready for the challenge. Mischievous. Diabetes. My two pet peeves are weary instead of wary, broad instead of bought, although another common one is prostrate instead of prostate, usually older gentlemen. I'm weary of using that thing I brought to help with my prostrate. Frustrated instead of frustrated. Ambulance. Chimbley instead of chimney. ETA. From some of the comments, I'm learning this is a dialectical pronunciation in some parts of the UK. My apologies, I'm in the US, and here it sounds improper. Pregnant. Ask as AKS. Nuclear as nuclear. Wary as weary. Any word with thing at the end, e.g. anything. Said as anythink or anythink. Use instead of you to denote the plural. Espresso as espresso. Chardonnay as chardonnay, and effluent instead of affluent. Both mispronounced perfectly in Australia's Kath and Kim. Putting it in height as in Haiti.